Want to get this briefing by email? Here's the sign up. Good evening. Here's the latest. Andrew Caballero Reynolds Agents France Press, Getty Images 1. It was election day, and the governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey were being at as the latest test of the Trump effect on voters in Republican areas. Neither of the Republican candidates, Ed Gillespie in Virginia and Lt. Gov. Kim Godogno in New Jersey, appeared with President Trump during the campaign. But they did mimic elements of his hardline statements. We're also winning elections in New York and Utah, among other places. Well, have live results here. Doug Mills, The New York Times 2. President Trump was in South Korea, where he assured anxious officials that the region's nuclear standoff will all work out. Instead of threatening muscular preemptive action against the North, Mr. Trump said he prayed that using military force would not be necessary. Above, Mr. Trump with President Moon Jae-in. Next step on the tour: China. Todd Heisler, The New York Times 3. During his news conference in Seoul, Mr. Trump was asked whether he would support extreme vetting of gun buyers, comparable to extra scrutiny for immigrants from predominantly Muslim countries, which he has said is necessary to combat terrorism. He replied that stricter gun laws would not have prevented the Texas shooting, and could have driven the death toll into the hundreds, since the gunman was shot by an armed bystander before later killing himself, officials said. More details emerged about the suspect, who was reported to have escaped from a psychiatric facility in 2012. We looked at the data on why the U.S. has so many mass shootings. The answer, it turns out, is lying in plain sight. And today on our podcast The Daily, we look at why a domestic violence conviction did not stop the suspect from buying weapons. J. Scott Applewhite, Associated Press 4. A congressional committee investigating Russian election meddling released a transcript of a 7-hour interview lawmakers conducted last week behind closed doors with Carter Page, above, a former foreign policy advisor to the Trump campaign. Mr. Page's testimony revealed new information about who in the campaign knew about a trip he took to Russia in the summer of 2016, what Mr. Page reported back to the campaign, and what other trips he took around that time. Here are the key excerpts and takeaways. Andrew testified for The New York Times 5. Our latest article in the Paradise Papers series is an inside look at the hideaways used by billionaires, celebrities and political donors to hide their cash. The papers, a trove of more than 13 million leaked documents from the law firm Appleby, were made public by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists in partnership with nearly 100 media organizations around the world. We spent months poring over them and found that the records shed light on the trillions of dollars that move through offshore tax havens, depriving public coffers while enriching the ultra-rich. Here's a guide to our coverage. Tom Brenner, The New York Times 6. The House Ways and Means Committee heard debate on the Republican tax bill, which is expected to clear the committee on Thursday and go up for a vote next week. But opposition to the bill is building. An analysis by the Congressional Joint Committee on Taxation found that the plan's tax cuts for lower and middle-income taxpayers would fade over the course of a decade, more so than they would for high earners. The Senate is expected to introduce its own version of the bill on Thursday. The Deemed Associated Press 7. In Britain, about a dozen members of Parliament are under investigation for UAL misconduct after a torrent of accusations spurred by the Weinstein case. Complaints had accumulated for years, in part because young staffers had no independent agency to bring them to. Michael Fallon, above, stepped down as defense secretary last week, saying he had behaved inappropriately in the past. The mogul Harvey Weinstein hired private detectives, lawyers and undercover agents to try to scuttle articles about accusations of UAL harassment and assault against him, The New Yorker reported. Patrick Stoller's Agents France Press, Getty Images 8. Syria agreed to sign the Paris Climate Agreement, making the U.S. the only country that has rejected the pact. The announcement was made during UN climate talks in Bonn, Germany. Above, placards installed at a park in Bonn. And in India, where pollution is rampant, the toxic haze blanketing New Delhi, from burning crops and other pollutants, was so severe this week that an official said the city had become a gas chamber. Stephen C. Mitchell, European Press Photo Agency 9. Roy Halladay, one of baseball's best pitchers in the last 20 years, died in a plane crash off the coast of Florida. He was 40. He had starred for the Toronto Blue Jays and the Philadelphia Phillies before he retired in 2013. His 16-year career included 2 Cy Young Awards. He had been alone aboard an Icon A5 registered in his name. He was known for his love of flying, and posted photos of the plane last month, writing that he had dreamed of owning one since retiring. Brian Ray 10. She dumped me. That was the first line of our first Modern Love column, published on October 31, 2004. In the 13 years since, the editors have received more than 80,000 submissions. In celebration of its anniversary, we've put together a collection of the column's greatest hits. And we have updates about some of them, including the famously controversial 2005 essay by Ayelet Waldman, in which she declared that she loved her husband more than her children. We also offer a slew of new essays about love, in all its messy permutations, and a data analysis of the word choices used by male and female writers. There were some striking differences. CBS 11. Finally, the late-night TV hosts had some fun with President Trump's travels in Asia. Following the president's trip, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson will then kick off his own 13-day trip to apologize for everything Donald Trump says, James Corden joked. Conan O'Brien continues his run of shows from the Apollo Theater. His guest on Tuesday is Keegan-Michael Key, best known for the sketch show Key Peele with Jordan Peele, 11 p.m. TBS. Have a great night. Your evening briefing is posted at 6 p.m. Eastern. And don't miss your morning briefing, posted weekdays at 6 a.m. Eastern, and your weekend briefing, posted at 6 a.m. Sundays. Want to catch up on past briefings? You can browse them here. If photographs appear out of order, please download the updated New York Times app from iTunes or Google Play. What did you like? What do you want to see here? Let us know at briefing@nytimes.com.